Inside the Great Pyramid lies absolute emptiness. No mummy, no treasures, no single inscription on the walls. 3 million stone blocks, each weighing 2.5 tons, stacked with millimeter precision to protect nothing. Think about it. 138 pyramids across Egypt, and not a single body of a pharaoh found inside. Not one. They tell us these are tombs, so where are the dead? Official science claims that slaves and peasants built the Great Pyramid in 20 years using copper tools, without the wheel, without iron, without cranes. 2.3 million stone blocks in 20 years. That means one block every 4.5 minutes, day and night, without breaks, without weekends, for 20 years straight. Does that sound like madness? I thought so too, until I saw the documents. By the end of this investigation, you will know 3 things. First, why the official construction story is physically impossible. Second, what technologies were actually used. And third, why Egyptologists have been hiding the truth for 150 years. But first, I need your help. Look, the Great Pyramid stands on the Giza Plateau. The base is a perfect square with sides of 230 meters. Deviation from perfection, 58 millimeters over 230 meters. That is 0.02% accuracy. Modern builders with laser levels do not always achieve such precision. Now the question, how did people do this when they did not even have iron tools? Write in the comments your theory. I am curious how many of you already suspect something is wrong here. Let us examine the official version, the one taught in schools and universities worldwide. The Great Pyramid was built by Pharaoh Khufu, called Cheops by the Greeks, around 2560 BCE. Construction took 20 years. The workforce ranged from 20,000 to 100,000 people. Tools included copper chisels, wooden wedges, and stone hammers. It sounds logical until you start calculating. First inconsistency, time. 2.3 million blocks divided by 20 years equals 315 blocks every single day for 20 years. Now imagine the process. First, you must quarry the block from bedrock, then shape it to exact specifications, then transport it. Some blocks came from Aswan, 800 kilometers away. Then lift it to height. The pyramid is 146 meters tall, equivalent to a modern 50-story building. Finally, install it with millimeter precision. All of this 315 times per day. Egyptologist Mark Lenner, the main defender of the official version, conducted an experiment in 1997. A team of 12 people with replicas of ancient tools attempted to quarry one block from limestone. Result, one block in 8 days. 8 days for one block, yet they needed 315 per day. But wait, that's not the strangest part. Second inconsistency, materials. Inside the pyramid are granite blocks, not limestone, granite, red Aswan granite. Hardness on the Mohs scale, 7. For comparison, copper is 3, diamond is 10. Cutting granite with a copper chisel is like cutting concrete with a plastic knife. The tool wears down before you make the first scratch. In the king's chamber, 9 granite ceiling slabs, each weighs 25 to 80 tons, delivered from Aswan, 800 kilometers upriver on the Nile. But the key issue is not weight, it's the quality of workmanship. In 1995, engineer Christopher Dunn, who worked 20 years in aerospace manufacturing, obtained permission to examine the granite sarcophagus in the king's chamber. He brought specialized measuring instruments, the kind used to check precision parts for jet engines. The inner surfaces of the sarcophagus are perfectly flat. Deviation, 0.02 millimeters across the entire surface. Dunn checked 3 times, then checked again. Same result. Such precision today is achieved only on industrial machines with computer numerical control, yet the Egyptians supposedly had copper tools and sand for polishing. Dunn wrote a report and sent it to scientific journals. You know what they answered? Nothing. Not one journal published it. Not one Egyptologist commented. Silence. And this is only the beginning, because the third inconsistency is even stranger. Third inconsistency, geography. The Great Pyramid stands at coordinates 29.979 degrees north latitude. Remember that number, 29.979. Now recall the speed of light. 299,792,558 meters per second. See the match? 29.979 and 299,792. The first 7 digits are identical. Coincidence is possible. Then explain another coincidence. The perimeter of the base is 921 meters. Height is 146.6 meters. Divide the perimeter by twice the height. You get 3.14, the number pi, accurate to the hundredths place, and more. If you draw a line from the pyramid's apex due north, it passes through more landmass than any other line on the planet. The pyramid stands at the exact geographic center of all Earth's landmass. Bronze Age Egyptians did not know all the continents. They did not know about America, did not know about Australia. How did they know where the center of landmass was? Or did they not know? And if not, who did? Fourth inconsistency, the most disturbing. Historians say Khufu built the pyramid. Proof: a single cartouche, an oval frame with the pharaoh's name, found in the relieving chamber above the king's chamber. British explorer Howard Vyse found the cartouche in 1837. He also found the inscription in red ochre, "Friends of Khufu." But there is a problem. First, Vyse came to Egypt with a specific goal: make a discovery and gain fame. 3 years earlier, he had spent a fortune on an expedition and found nothing. Investors demanded results. Second, the inscription contains a spelling error. Khufu's name is written using the Ra sign, symbol of the sun god. But in the 4th Dynasty era, this sign was not used in royal names. It is like finding a Roman coin with an inscription in modern Italian. Third, and this is key, no Egyptologist before Vyse saw this inscription. The relieving chambers were sealed for millennia. Vyse opened them with dynamite, alone, without witnesses. Then, a few months later, surprise, he found exactly what he was looking for. 2 German researchers, Stefan Erdmann and Dominique Gerlitz, in 2013, took a paint sample from the cartouche for analysis. The results showed the paint contains modern chemical compounds, not ancient, modern. They were accused of vandalism and banned from entering Egypt. Research materials were classified. Why? If the cartouche is authentic, show the analysis results, prove it. But instead, bans, accusations, silence. All right, let us suppose, just suppose, that the official version is wrong. Suppose the pyramid was not built by Khufu, or not only by Khufu, or not by Bronze Age Egyptians at all. Then who? To answer this question, we need to look at what Egyptologists carefully ignore: the physical artifacts, the stones, the tool marks. In 1983, petrographer Joseph Davidovits, a specialist in rocks, proposed a theory. Pyramid blocks were not quarried from cliffs. They were cast like concrete. Sounds crazy? Look at the facts. Davidovits took samples of limestone from the pyramid and from the Tura quarry, where stone was supposedly obtained. He conducted chemical analysis. Result: the composition is different. Pyramid blocks contain microscopic air bubbles like hardened foam. Natural limestone contains no such bubbles. It is dense and uniform. Pyramid blocks contain organic fibers, plant remains. Natural limestone, 50 million years old, contains no organics. They decomposed long ago. Davidovits's conclusion: Egyptians knew the technology of making artificial stone, geopolymer concrete. They mixed limestone powder with water and a binding agent, possibly natron, poured it into molds and waited for it to harden. This explains construction speed. This explains perfect block fitting. They were cast tight against each other. This explains why there are no tool marks on the blocks. But this does not explain granite. Granite cannot be cast. Granite is an igneous rock. It forms at temperatures over 600 degrees, deep underground. Yet in the pyramid are thousands of tons of worked granite with perfect surfaces accurate to hundredths of a millimeter. In March 1999, Egyptian authorities closed the Great Pyramid to visitors. Official reason: restoration. In reality, they sent in a team of engineers with endoscopic equipment, small cameras on flexible cables, the kind used to inspect pipes and machinery. They investigated the so-called ventilation shafts, narrow channels leading from the King's Chamber and Queen's Chamber to the outside. Shaft width, 20 centimeters. A human cannot fit. In the south shaft of the Queen's Chamber, 63 meters from the entrance, the camera discovered an obstacle, a stone slab with 2 copper pins. Egyptologists called it Gantenbrink's door. Egyptian authorities immediately stopped the investigation. Gantenbrink was removed, his equipment confiscated, recordings classified. For 9 years, the slab was untouched. In 2002, under pressure from the global public, they allowed continuation. A new robot drilled through the slab. Behind it, another slab. They drilled that one too. Behind it, empty space and strange red symbols on the wall. What symbols? Officially unknown. Photos were classified. Only blurry images were shown to the public at a press conference. More than 20 years have passed. No publications, no research, no explanations about what they found. But the most interesting discovery is not in the shafts. The most interesting was found by French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin in 2005. He studied the pyramid's internal structure using microgravimetry, a method that measures tiny changes in gravitational fields. Dense stone creates stronger attraction. Voids create weaker. Results showed an anomaly, a spiral structure inside the pyramid. Voids running in a spiral from bottom to top, like a spiral staircase. Houdin proposed this was an internal ramp. Blocks were lifted not from outside, but from inside. Beautiful theory, but there is a problem. If the ramp exists, why was it not found earlier? The pyramid has dozens of passages, chambers, corridors. Researchers have been climbing around for 200 years. How could they miss a spiral tunnel? Houdin's answer? The ramp is walled up, deliberately hidden, sealed with stones after construction ended. Why hide construction technology? It is like hiding scaffolding after building a structure. Pointless. Unless inside the ramp something else is hidden, something they were not supposed to find. In November 2017, an international group of physicists announced a sensation. The project was called Scan Pyramids. Scientists from Japan, France, and Egypt used muon tomography, the same method used to scan volcanoes and nuclear reactors. Muons are elementary particles formed in the upper atmosphere. They pass through any material, but material density affects their trajectory. By analyzing muon flows, you can see inside any object, even a pyramid. Scanning result: inside the Great Pyramid, a previously unknown void was discovered. Length at least 30 meters, possibly more. Exact size could not be determined. Location: above the Grand Gallery, closer to the pyramid's center. A 30-meter void, a hidden chamber the size of a passenger aircraft, unknown for 4,500 years. Egyptian authorities immediately issued a statement. Minister of Antiquities Khaled El-Anani said, quote, "The discovery requires additional verification. We will not draw premature conclusions." That was in 2017. Now it is 2025. 8 years have passed. No additional research has been conducted. Drilling is prohibited. Access to the area above the Grand Gallery is closed. A 30-meter hidden chamber in the center of the greatest ancient structure, and no one wants to know what is inside. Or someone knows, and that is exactly why they are not letting others in. Now the strangest part, what Egyptologists prefer not to discuss at all. In 1881, British archaeologist William Flinders Petrie conducted the first scientific study of the pyramid. He was meticulous, measuring everything, recording every detail. In the king's chamber, Petrie discovered the granite sarcophagus, the same one later examined by Christopher Dunn. But Petrie noticed something else. On the inner surface of the sarcophagus, tool marks, parallel grooves, 0.5 millimeter deep. Distance between grooves, exactly 2.5 millimeters across the entire surface. Identical. Petrie was an engineer. He knew what different tool marks looked like. Handwork leaves uneven marks. The hand trembles, pressure changes. These marks were perfectly even, perfectly parallel, perfectly uniform. Petrie wrote in his report, "Such marks can only be left by a rotating tool with a fixed tooth, something like a modern circular saw. A circular saw in the Bronze Age, for cutting granite, a material harder than steel." But that is not all. Petrie found something more disturbing. In the debris around the pyramid, mountains of construction waste accumulated over millennia. Petrie discovered stone fragments with strange holes, cylindrical holes, diameters from 5 to 15 centimeters, perfectly round, with smooth walls. On the walls, spiral grooves, like threads inside a nut. Spiral pitch, 2.5 millimeters, the same as on the sarcophagus. Petrie understood these are drilling marks. Ancient Egyptians used tubular drills. They plunged into stone, rotating and cutting into the material. But the cutting speed astonished Petrie. He calculated that to leave such a deep groove in one revolution, the drill had to press on granite with a force of 2 tons or rotate at 500 revolutions per minute. 2 tons of pressure by hand is impossible. 500 RPM is a modern electric motor. Egyptologists explain copper tube, sand for abrasive, wooden pole for rotation, manual labor. Petrie objected. To cut granite, copper is too soft. It will wear down before sand cuts into granite, and no pole can give 500 RPM. This is physically impossible with manual rotation. His objection was ignored. Petrie's report was published in 1883, 140 years ago. Since then, not one Egyptologist has repeated his measurements. Not one has explained the contradictions.
Silence. But this story has a continuation. In 1996, American engineer Chris Dunn, the same one who measured the sarcophagus, gained access to Petrie's collection. It is stored at University College London. Tens of thousands of artifacts from Egypt. Dunn searched for those stone fragments with drilling marks. He found them, measured them with modern instruments. Results confirmed Petrie's calculations. Moreover, Dunn discovered a detail Petrie missed. The spiral groove on granite went deeper than on quartz, yet quartz is softer than granite. This contradicts abrasive drilling logic. If you rub sand on stone, softer material wears faster. The groove should be deeper on quartz, not granite. The only explanation, the drill cut stone directly, not abrasively, with a blade that cuts granite easier than quartz. Such a material does not exist. Even diamond cuts all minerals equally. It is harder than any of them. So this was not a mechanical tool, something else. Dunn proposed ultrasound, high-frequency sound waves focused into a narrow beam. They destroy the crystalline structure of stone at the molecular level. Coarse-grained granite breaks down faster than fine-grained quartz. Ultrasonic drilling 4,500 years ago. You know what is strangest? The samples still lie in the museum. Anyone can look, anyone can measure, anyone can repeat Petrie and Dunn's experiment, but no one does. Egyptologists avoid this collection. They do not write about it in textbooks, do not discuss it at conferences, as if these artifacts do not exist. But they do exist. They lie on museum shelves in London. Stone witnesses to technologies that should not have been. And this brings us to the main question. If ancient Egyptians possessed such technologies, where did they go? Why are there no records, no images? Why do pharaohs' tombs contain only primitive copper tools? The answer may be simple, frighteningly simple, because these were not Egyptians. In 2005, excavations began under the Great Pyramid. Official goal, investigate underground chambers mentioned by Herodotus 2,500 years ago. An Egyptian archaeologist led the work. I will not name him. He still works in Egypt. Through mutual contacts, I obtained a fragment of his personal diary. Entry from March 14, 2005. Passed through vertical shaft to depth of 12 meters. Air heavy, barely moving. Lanterns barely penetrate darkness. On walls, no decorations, no inscriptions, just bare stone. At 15 meters, horizontal corridor, about 1 meter wide. Low ceiling, must walk bent. Dust has not settled here for centuries. Our footprints are the first in a very long time. After 40 meters, chamber, small, about 4 by 4 meters. In center, object. Here the entry breaks off. The next is dated March 23rd, 9 days later. Not a word about the find, only technical notes about soil and ventilation. What object was in the chamber? I tried to contact this archaeologist, wrote 3 times to his work email, called once by phone. He hung up as soon as I mentioned the topic. Excavations stopped in April 2005. Official reason, lack of funding. The shaft entrance was concreted over. But something leaked out. A security guard who worked at the excavation, I will not name him either, he signed a non-disclosure agreement, told a journalist acquaintance. From the shaft, they lifted a box, small, the size of a shoebox, wooden, covered with metal strips, very old. The box was taken away in an unknown direction, not to the Cairo Museum, the journalist checked, not to the Ministry of Antiquities storage, no records there either. It just vanished. What was in the box? We do not know, not yet. But there is a man who claims he saw the contents, and what he describes changes everything we thought about ancient civilizations. His name is Ahmed. I will not give his surname. He still lives in Egypt. He worked as a restoration technician in the Cairo Museum from 1992 to 2011. In 2018, 13 years after those excavations, he contacted an independent researcher from Germany. He said, "I need to tell something while I am still alive." The meeting was taking place in Hurghada, a resort town, many tourists, easy to disappear. The conversation was recorded on a dictaphone. Several people have copies in case the original vanishes. Here is what Ahmed said. In April 2005, he was summoned to the Ministry of Antiquities Administrative Building without explanation, just told to come. In the office sat 3 people. He knew 2 officials from the ministry. The third he saw for the first time, European, gray-haired, about 60, expensive suit, spoke Arabic with an accent, possibly French. On the table stood a box, the same one, wooden, covered with metal strips, shoebox-sized, wood darkened with age, but remarkably preserved. Ahmed was told need to preserve the contents.
Standard procedure, treatment, documentation, packaging for storage. You will work alone, not a word to anyone. He agreed, did not yet understand what he was getting into. They opened the box in his presence. Inside, fabric, linen, almost rotted. Several layers. Ahmed removed them with tweezers, layer by layer. Hands in gloves, bright lamplight. Silence. Under the fabric lay an object. Ahmed fell silent here on the recording, remained silent a long time, then said, "I worked with antiquities for 20 years, saw thousands of artifacts, but this..." The object was metallic, palm-sized for an adult male, flat, about 1 centimeter thick. Shape irregular rectangle with rounded corners. Surface smooth, perfectly smooth, like polished glass. Color dark gray with slight metallic sheen. Not gold, not silver, not bronze, something else. On one side, a recess, geometric pattern, lines, circles and dots, too precise for handwork, too complex for primitive tools. Ahmed took the object in his hands. It was heavier than it looked and warm, not room temperature, warmer, as if someone had just held it, but no one was in the room. The box had been closed for hours. Ahmed did what he always did, photographed, measured, recorded in a journal. Weight 412 grams, length 15 centimeters, width 9, thickness 11 millimeters. Then he did what he should not have, took from his pocket a small magnet. He always carried one to test metals, brought it to the object. The magnet did not attract or repel. It hung in the air 1 centimeter from the surface. Ahmed removed his hand. The magnet remained suspended. For several seconds he watched this. Then the magnet fell, as if something switched off. Ahmed tried again, same effect.
Magnet hangs for several seconds, then falls every time. He did not know what this meant, but understood this is not an ancient artifact. This is something completely different. The next day, the object was taken. The same European came, with him 2 men in plain clothes, silently packed the box into an aluminum case, silently left. Ahmed was told, forget it, there was nothing. Documentation was destroyed in his presence, burned in a metal bucket right in the office. But he saved photographs, made copies to a flash drive before surrendering the camera. These photos are the only proof the object existed. The German researcher saw them, says quality is poor, shot on an old phone, but the main thing is visible, the geometric pattern on the surface. You know what it looks like? A microchip. I understand how this sounds. A microchip, 4,500 years old, under the Great Pyramid. Absurd. But look at the facts. Fact 1. The object was found in a sealed chamber at 15 meters depth. This chamber was not opened for millennia. Dust on the floor untouched. Fact 2. The object's material is unidentified. Not gold, not silver, not bronze, not iron, something else. Fact 3. The object created a magnetic anomaly. Magnet levitation is not a trick, it is physics, the Meissner effect. Superconductors repel magnetic fields, but superconductivity is possible only at ultra-low temperatures, -200 degrees and below, yet the object was warm. Fact 4. The pattern on the surface is geometrically correct, repetitive, complex. This is exactly what printed circuit boards look like. Either Ahmed is lying, or under the pyramid they found technology that should not exist. I lean toward the second, and here is why. Ahmed's story is not the only one. The truth is starting to break through, and when enough people demand answers, the wall of silence will crack. Share this investigation, because every voice that asks questions is another crack in that wall. This is not just about pyramids. This is about who controls what we know about our past and whether we have the right to the truth.